As I sit in front of you today, I bet I know what you're wondering. What conditioner does she use? But seriously, it is actually my hair that has led me to be talking in front of you today. When I was 9, I had major open heart surgery to repair a coarctation of my aorta. All the surgeons needed to do was cut the narrowing and stick it back together again. Job done. But as I was coming round from the anaesthetic, I choked on the intubated breathing tube and panicked. And as I did so, the internal stitches burst, causing major internal bleeding. There was no time to be rushed to surgery. My life-saving surgery took place there and then on PICU. Doctors were able to restart my heart, and I was placed in a medically induced coma, and my body temperature was dropped to help my body give the best chance of survival. At this stage, nobody knew if I was alive or dead. But day by day, I would give little signs, like a flicker of an eye or a flicker of a finger, to say, yes, I am in here. I had the brainstem activity tests, and that proved that I was still alive. Day by day, I got a little bit stronger, and I started to come round. I could barely see. I could barely move. I didn't have a clue what was going on. And I was like, I'm sure this wasn't supposed to happen. But I underwent a lot of tests and a lot of therapies, and eventually I was well enough to go home, where I spent years having physiotherapy. I had occupational therapy, I had speech and language therapy, you name it, I probably did it. And eventually I went down to the Salisbury District Hospital. I went to the spinal unit there, and a lovely doctor diagnosed me with a T10 incomplete spinal cord injury suffered due to the lack of oxygen to my body during the aortic rupture. Finally, I was well enough to go back to school, and I was in my final years of junior school, and things were okay, and that was fine. But then it was time to start high school, and being a disabled teen at high school is nothing, having a spinal cord injury, being in a coma. Heart surgery is nothing compared to being a disabled teen. It was awful. I didn't fit in. I struggled to make friends. I never had a sense of belonging, and it was really, really tough. I was very depressed, and some nights I would cry myself to sleep. During this stage, I was actually a big fan of children's television. I loved shows like SMTV Live and Blue Peter and Top of the Pops. I don't know if any of you remember Top of the Pops. It's Friday night, it's 7:30. This is Top of the Pops. Waiting to hear if All Saints was still number 1. Well, I love those shows. Yeah, I know, shame my age. I love those shows, and I love the energy, and I love the buzz. And I remember turning to my parents one day, and I said, I'm going to be the first disabled television presenter. Because back then, there was no one in the public eye in that genre of the media with a disability. There was no one I could look at and think, oh, that's like me. So eventually I left school and I went to college. And I went to college in Brighton. And for those of you who don't know, Brighton is an amazing city with such a diverse mix of cultures, and it's great. And in my college there were some fabulous groups of people. And I kind of settled in quite nicely with the goth and the emo kids. And I kind of pretended to like bands like Slipknot and System of a Down. But these guys, they were really great, and they really accepted me for who I was. And they didn't seem fazed that I had a disability. And if we wanted to go to the beach one day, they would just pick me up and carry me, and off we would go. And for the first time, I sort of had that sense of belonging. So during this period, I lived the rock and roll lifestyle. I went to clubs, pubs, raves, boat parties, house parties. I was coming in at 6 a.m. as my parents were going off out to golf, But it was an amazing time. And it was during this period that I met my amazing Australian husband, Sean, who proposed to me on the Great Barrier Reef in 2004. And we got married and had our daughter and settled down in 2009. And then I kind of settled into family life. I had a part-time job, which I loved, and I really enjoyed being a mum. But my ambition was still there. It was still niggling at me. And then one day, we see an ad, and Channel 4 were looking for people with disabilities to present at the London 2012 Paralympic Games. I was like, I've got to do this. I have got to do this. So the deadline was actually the next day at 12 p.m. So I quickly did a little bit of research, and on a cold, crisp January day, we went down onto Brighton Pier and we shot a little 3-minute video. I quickly edited it, uploaded it, and off it went. Then, a couple of weeks later, I get the call. You have been selected to go for further auditions at the National Film and Television School. So off I went on my own, and I met 12 other amazing hopefuls, all with disabilities. And it was just amazing to walk into a room and not have anyone sort of questioning or wondering or treating you any differently. It was an amazing experience. I learned how to present in a live studio with open talkback and auto cue. I learned how to interview and how to be interviewed. And I also learned I know nothing about Paralympic sport. I know, it's a shocker, but just because I'm in a wheelchair doesn't mean I play wheelchair rugby. So it was an amazing experience, and we were there live in the studio, but just bear in mind it is a simulation, and they cut live to Jem at the bocce court. There was nothing, absolutely nothing. So, if you're going to be talking live to millions of people across the world, you've kind of got to know what you're talking about. So maybe Paralympic sport wasn't for me. And just in case you're wondering, bocce, it's a bit like bowls. But anyway, it was an amazing experience. I learned a lot, and I tried to get an agent, and I did a few auditions for shopping channels, but nothing really seemed right. But then every morning, at about 6:30, I would hear, "Hi guys! So today I'm going to show you how to create this Disney princess look." And it was my daughter watching YouTube tutorials and on hair and makeup, and I thought, I can do this. I like hair, I like makeup. I think I'm onto something here. And this was sort of at the time when YouTube was just evolving and beginning, and no one really knew what they were doing. And I kind of procrastinated, unfortunately, for a good few years. And if you ask other content creators, they do tend to do this before they feel ready to start. And then I was made redundant from my job of 12 years, which was quite sad, but one door closes, another door opens. And then finally, I uploaded my first ever hair tutorial on Instagram, and Wheels No Heels was born. From looking at my videos, you would never know that I had a disability. I just did the hair and the makeup. And things all kind of started to take off when Hubbard Beauty reposted a few of my tutorials on her page with millions of followers. And I started to gain a lot of followers on my page, and my videos were reaching up to 500,000 views. But with this large level of engagement came a lot of trolls, and I'd have, people saying, "Oh my God, her eyebrows," and "Oh, my eyes, they're bleeding." I had racist comments, and I even had death threats just for making hair tutorials. I remember thinking, is this worth it? Is this making me happy? And I would get nice comments as well, like, oh, that's pretty. And I remember reaching 30,000 followers on Instagram, and a young girl commented, oh, that's so inspirational. And even though that was a nice comment, I just felt really empty about it. And I just felt, I've got more to give than this. So then I started to look up other disabled content creators. And I started looking at these other paraplegics in their wheelchairs, showing off their skinny legs. And then something clicked in me. That's like me. And that was the feeling I was missing when I was young. So I changed everything up on my Instagram and on my channel, my YouTube channel, to be dedicated to my life with a disability. And now I show videos on how I drive, to how I never dream I'm disabled. I'm always walking around. I have videos on what it feels like to be paralyzed. And I also talk about my pregnancy and bringing up a child from a wheelchair. And then something amazing started to happen, and people were watching the videos, sharing the videos, commenting. They were commenting on other people's comments, and I then sort of started to build up a community, a place where people can talk and share ideas. And now I get messages from people all over the world thanking me for showing them that they can, or even just to share their story with me. And with the thanks to social media, you don't have to feel alone anymore. So I show how I do different, because I had no one to look up to when I was young. No one I could look at and say, oh, that's like me. So if you are to take anything away with you today, be the person you needed when you were young.